The alien king's challenge. The vast expanse of space held its breath as the Negan fleet, led by the formidable King Talon, emerged near Neptune. The eerie silence of the cosmos was shattered by the blaring warning klaxons of the human outposts. The Negan ships, colossal and menacing, moved with the precision of a well-oiled war machine, their sleek forms cutting through the void like predators on the hunt. King Talon, sitting on his opulent command throne, gazed at the tiny, seemingly insignificant human scout ship that hovered near the outer rim of the solar system. The ship, a mere speck against the backdrop of the stars, was nothing more than a toy in the eyes of the arrogant alien ruler. "Magnify," Talon commanded, his voice dripping with contempt. The view zoomed in on the human vessel, revealing its battered exterior and unimpressive design. The Negan king's lips curled into a wolfish grin. How amusing, he thought, that these primitive humans would dare to venture so close to his empire's borders. They must be taught a lesson that would echo through the galaxy for eons to come. "Open a channel," Talon ordered, his underlings scurrying to comply. The screen crackled to life, revealing the stern face of Captain Zachary Adams of the UES Prometheus. The human wore a drab gray uniform, his expression resolute despite the clear disparity in power between their two ships. "Captain Adams," Talon sneered, his voice laced with mockery, "your primitive toy is trespassing in my empire's territory. Surrender now, and I may show you mercy." Adams' eyes flashed with defiance. "Negative," he replied, his voice steady. "You're the one in Earth's space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Talon's laughter boomed through the bridge of his ship, a sound filled with derision and scorn. Did this human truly believe his pitiful craft stood a chance against the might of the Negan fleet? "You dare threaten me?" Talon roared, his amusement quickly turning to anger. "Let's see what your ship is made of!" "All vessels, fire a warning shot." The Negan battlecruisers responded with military precision, their weapons charging to unleash a barrage of energy towards the lone human ship. But as the deadly beams approached, something unexpected happened. The Prometheus seemed to flicker, then multiply, as dozens of identical ships appeared on the Negan's scanners. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet as the human vessel danced through space, its ECM drones creating chaos in the enemy's ranks. "Impossible." Talon snarled, his face purpling with rage. "Swarm them!" I want that ship captured intact, but it was too late. The Prometheus, agile and elusive, moved with a grace that belied its size. It weaved between the Negan cruisers, its railguns firing with pinpoint accuracy. Key systems on the alien ships exploded in showers of sparks, leaving them crippled and vulnerable. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in mere minutes. The once proud Negan armada limped away in disarray, trailing atmosphere and debris as they retreated from the battlefield. Talon seethed in his throne, his hands gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He had grossly underestimated these humans. But this was not the end. No, this was merely the beginning. He would return, and next time their wondrous technology would be his. As the Prometheus docked at New Terra's orbital station, Captain Adams strode into the command center, his expression as hard as steel. Admiral Landry looked up from the holographic display, her eyes weary but resolute. "It's not over, Admiral," Adams said, his voice low and grim. "We hurt them, but we also pissed them off. They'll be back, and in force." Landry nodded, her gaze shifting to the data chip in her hand. "This," she said, plugging it into the console, "could change everything." The information that scrolled across the screen was shocking, to say the least. It outlined the Negan Empire's command structure, their weaknesses, and most importantly, a plan. A plan to strike back with a coordinated assault that could turn the tide of this war. Light years away, in the heart of the Negan Empire, King Talon paced his throne room like a caged animal. His war council cowered before him, none daring to meet his baleful gaze. "You assured me the humans were weak," Talon snarled, his voice a dangerous hiss, "that their pitiful ships would crumble before our might. And yet here we stand, beaten by a single vessel." General Zarn, One of the few brave enough to speak gestured to the holographic map. A multi-pronged assault, he suggested, overwhelming their defenses. We will hunt down this Prometheus and take it intact. Their technology will be ours. Talon leaned back, a cruel smile playing across his lips. See that it is done, General. I want that colony burned to ashes and the humans brought to heel. As the Nigan fleet regrouped and prepared for their next assault, Captain Adams and his crew braced for the storm that was about to come. The battle for the future of humanity was far from over. The return of the Nigan Empire, the tension aboard the UES Prometheus was palpable as the crew prepared for the imminent Nigan assault. Captain Adams paced the bridge, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. He knew the Nigan Empire would not take their defeat lightly, and their response would be swift and brutal. The holographic display in the center of the bridge flickered to life, showing the latest intelligence gathered from the captured Nigan data chip. It detailed the locations of key Nigan command ships and suggested a coordinated strike that could cripple their ability to wage war. Admiral Landry's voice crackled over the comms, bringing Adams out of his thoughts. Captain, the Nigan fleet is on the move. They've bypassed the outer colonies and are heading straight for New Terra. We don't have much time. Adams nodded, his jaw set in determination. Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready. As the Prometheus and its sister ships prepared for battle, Commander Ella Stark, Adams's second-in-command, led a squadron of agile fighters into the void. Their mission was to harry the enemy, drawing their fire away from the main fleet and creating openings for the larger ships to exploit. The two fleets clashed in a storm of fire and fury, the humans fighting with a desperate tenacity born of survival. The Prometheus danced through the Nigan ranks, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible as it delivered devastating blows to the enemy's key systems. But the Nigan fleet was vast and relentless. Their weapons hammered the human defenses, and despite their best efforts, ships on both sides began to fall. The void was lit by the flames of dying vessels, and the screams of the wounded echoed through the comms. Adams gritted his teeth, knowing they couldn't hold out much longer. The Nigan forces were too numerous, their technology too advanced. Desperation clawed at his mind, but he refused to give in to despair. In a daring move, Adams ordered a direct assault on the Nigan command ship, hoping to disrupt their coordination and buy time for the colony to evacuate. But as the Prometheus closed in on its target, the trap was sprung. Hidden Nigan battlecruisers decloaked around them, their weapons already charged and ready to fire. "Fall back!" Adams ordered, his voice raw with frustration. "All ships, fall back to the colony!" The Prometheus barely escaped the ambush, its hull scarred and battered. As they limped back to New Terra, Adams couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of options. The Nigan Empire was too powerful, their resources too vast. But then, as if in answer to his silent prayers, a transmission crackled to life on the bridge. "Captain Adams, this is Marcus Reeves. I've got intel that could turn this war around. Rendezvous at these coordinates." Adams's eyes narrowed. Marcus Reeves was a name that carried weight in the shadowy world of intelligence. If anyone could help them, it was him. "Set course," Adams ordered, his mind already racing with possibilities. This might be their only shot. The Prometheus limped through the asteroid field, its sensors on high alert for any sign of an ambush. As they approached the designated coordinates, a hidden base tucked into the heart of a massive asteroid came into view. Reeves wasted no time. He pulled up schematics of Nigan ships, mining facilities, and weapon systems. "It all runs on Nigan," he explained, pointing to a rare mineral found on only a handful of worlds. "We take that out. We cripple their war machine." Adams nodded, a spark of hope igniting in his chest. "Let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, the Prometheus led a series of lightning raids on Nigan mining operations. They struck fast and vanished before reinforcements could arrive, leaving destruction in their wake. On one such mission, Adams and Hawkeye's team infiltrated a processing facility on a barren moon. As they planted charges, Adams noticed strange markings on the walls. "Sir," one of the commandos called out, "you need to see this." In a sealed chamber, they found artifacts of impossible complexity, technology far beyond even Nigan capabilities. What the hell is this? Hawkeye breathed, his voice filled with awe. Adams ran his hand over a console covered in alien script. I don't know, he replied. But I think we just stumbled onto the source of the Negan power. Before they could investigate further, alarms blared and the facility's defenses sprang to life. Charges set, Hawkeye reported, his voice tense. Time to go. As they made their escape, the facility erupted in a series of explosions, leaving nothing but rubble and twisted metal in their wake. But the discovery of the alien technology weighed heavily on Adam's mind. What had the Nigans found, and how had they harnessed its power? Back on New Terra, Admiral Landry reviewed the latest intelligence reports with a frown. A knock at her door revealed an unexpected visitor, a Nigan female with fierce eyes and tribal markings. I am Kira, she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. And I bring an offer of alliance against the tyrant Talon. Landry's eyes narrowed. Why should I trust you? Kira smiled, all teeth. Because I can give you the location of Talon's secret weapon, the one that could destroy entire star systems. As the Prometheus raced back to New Terra, Adams knew the final confrontation was approaching. The fate of humanity and the entire galaxy would soon be decided. The final confrontation. The facility loomed before them, a sprawling complex of interconnected structures nestled within an asteroid. As the Prometheus docked silently, Adams led the strike team through the airlock, their movements swift and precise. They navigated the dimly lit corridors, dispatching Negan guards with ruthless efficiency. The team's hacker, a wiry woman codenamed Cypher, worked feverishly at each security checkpoint, her fingers dancing over the keys. We're in, she whispered as the final door slid open with a hiss. Adams stepped into the chamber, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. The room was dominated by a massive reactor core, its surface covered in alien text that glowed with a faint, eerie light. My God, Brennan, one of the commandos breathed. What is this? Adams approached a central console, scanning the alien text. They've done it, he muttered, his voice filled with a mix of awe and dread. They've harnessed dark energy. A klaxon blared, red lights bathing the chamber. We've been made, Cypher warned, her voice tight with urgency. Security is converging on our position. Grab what we can and move, Adams ordered, wrenching a pulsing black core from its housing. Alarms shrieked in protest as the team fought their way back to the Prometheus. Nigan weapons fire nipped at their heels as they broke free of the asteroid's mass. The colony's governing council erupted into heated debate as they reviewed the data Adams had brought back. Counselor Vega thumped his hand on the table, his voice filled with conviction. We must use this weapon. It's our only chance against the Negan onslaught and risk the wrath of every other spacefaring race, Counselor Chen countered, her tone equally fierce. We'd be seen as monsters. In the sterile confines of a hidden laboratory, human scientists pored over the stolen dark energy core. Dr. Alara Voss, her eyes ringed with exhaustion, manipulated holographic models of subatomic particles. If we can crack this, she muttered, we might have a chance. Meanwhile, in the opulent throne room of the Nigan capital, King Talon paced like a caged animal. His war council cowered before him, none daring to meet his baleful gaze. You assured me the humans were weak, Talon snarled, his voice a dangerous hiss, that their pitiful ships would crumble before our might. And yet here we stand, beaten by a single vessel. General Zarn, one of the few brave enough to speak, gestured to the holographic map. A multi-pronged assault, he suggested, overwhelming their defenses. We will hunt down this Prometheus and take it intact. Their technology will be ours. Talon leaned back, a cruel smile playing across his lips. See that it is done, General. I want that colony burned to ashes, and the humans brought to heel. As the Prometheus raced back to New Terra, Adams knew the final confrontation was approaching. The fate of humanity and the entire galaxy would soon be decided. The Battle of New Terra. The Nigan fleet descended upon New Terra like a storm, their ships darkening the skies as they prepared to unleash their fury. The Prometheus and its sister ships hovered in the planet's orbit, ready to defend the colony with every ounce of strength they had left. Admiral Landry stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "This is it," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this." Captain Adams nodded grimly, his gaze never leaving the battle unfolding before them. The Negan ships were massive, their weapon systems far superior to anything the human fleet could muster. But they had one advantage, the element of surprise. Thanks to the data chip Adams had recovered, they knew the weaknesses in the Negan fleet's formation. It was a slim chance, but it was all they had. "All ships," Landry's voice rang out over the comms, "concentrate your fire on the lead Negan battlecruiser. We need to break their formation." The human ships surged forward, their weapons blazing as they targeted the massive Negan cruiser at the center of the enemy fleet. The void lit up with the glow of energy beams and missile trails, the battle a chaotic dance of destruction. The Prometheus led the charge, its railguns hammering the Negan ship with a relentless barrage of fire. For a moment, it seemed as though they might succeed. The Negan cruiser's shields flickered under the onslaught, and its hull began to buckle. But then, with a roar of engines, the rest of the Negan fleet surged forward, closing the gap and encircling the human ships. "We're surrounded," Commander Stark called out, her voice tense. "They're cutting us off from the colony." Adam's mind raced. They couldn't afford to lose this battle. The colony was their last hope, the final refuge of humanity. If it fell, there would be nowhere left to run. "All ships, fall back to the colony," he ordered, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "We have to protect the civilians." The human fleet broke off their attack, retreating towards the planet's surface. But the Negan ships were relentless, their weapons hammering the human vessels as they fled. One by one, the smaller ships began to falter, their hulls shattered by the relentless assault. On the ground, the colony was a hive of activity as civilians scrambled to reach the safety of the underground bunkers. The Negan ships hovered above, their weapons charging for a final devastating strike. Admiral Landry's voice crackled over the comms. "We need to hold the line. If they breach the colony's defenses, it's over." "I know," Adams replied, his jaw set in determination. "We won't let that happen." As the Negan ships closed in, the Prometheus led the remaining human vessels in a desperate last stand. They fired everything they had, their weapons blazing as they fought to keep the enemy at bay. The Negan ships returned fire with ruthless precision, their beams slicing through the human defenses like a hot knife through butter. But just as it seemed all hope was lost, a new player entered the battlefield. A massive explosion rocked the Negan fleet as a ship decloaked at the edge of the battlefield, its weapon systems glowing with an eerie blue light. "It's the Titan!" Commander Stark exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. The UES Titan, the pride of the human fleet, had arrived just in time. Its advanced weaponry tore through the Negan ships, turning the tide of the battle in an instant. The Negan fleet, caught off guard by the sudden arrival of reinforcements, began to falter. "All ships, target the Negan command ship," Adams ordered, seizing the opportunity. The human ships surged forward once more, their weapons converging on the massive Negan cruiser at the heart of the enemy fleet. The Titan led the charge, its beams cutting through the Negan shields with surgical precision. In a matter of minutes, the once imposing Negan fleet was reduced to a smoldering wreck, their ships shattered and broken. On the ground, the colonists watched in awe as the Negan ships began to retreat, their once unstoppable armada in full retreat. The battle was over. They had won. But as the cheers erupted throughout the colony, Adams' mind was already on the next step. The Negan Empire would not take this defeat lightly. They would regroup, rebuild, and return with a vengeance. And next time, they might not be so lucky. "We bought ourselves some time," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the celebrations. "But this war is far from over." Admiral Landry nodded, her expression grim. "You're right, Captain. But for now, let's take the win." As the Prometheus docked at New Terra's orbital station, Adams couldn't shake the feeling that they had only delayed the inevitable. The Negan Empire was a force to be reckoned with, and they would not rest until humanity was crushed beneath their heel. The battle for survival had only just begun. The road to victory, the aftermath of the Battle of New Terra, was both a time of celebration and preparation. While the human fleet had managed to repel the Nigan assault, the cost had been high. Many ships were lost, and the colony's defenses were severely weakened. But despite the devastation, there was a newfound sense of hope among the survivors. They had faced the full might of the Nigan Empire and emerged victorious. It was a victory that gave them the strength to keep fighting. Captain Adams stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, his eyes scanning the horizon as the planet's surface stretched out below them. The colony was a hive of activity, with engineers and soldiers working tirelessly to repair the damage and fortify their defenses. But even as they rebuilt, Adams knew that the real battle was still to come. The Nigan Empire would not rest until they had wiped humanity from the face of the galaxy. "We can't keep fighting them head-on," Admiral Landry said, her voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Our resources are stretched too thin. We need to find a way to hit them where it hurts." Adams nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to take the fight to them. Hit their supply lines, disrupt their operations, make it so costly for them to continue this war that they have no choice but to back down." Landry's gaze sharpened. "You have a plan?" "I do," Adams replied, his voice firm. "But it's going to be risky. We'll need to operate behind enemy lines, striking at their weakest points. It won't be easy, and we'll need the best of the best to pull it off." The Admiral considered his words for a moment before nodding. "Do what you need to do, Captain. But be careful. We can't afford to lose you." Over the next few weeks, Adams assembled a team of elite soldiers and operatives, each one hand-picked for their skills and experience. Among them was Commander Stark, who had proven her mettle time and time again, Cypher, the brilliant hacker who had cracked the Nigan security systems, and Hawkeye, a sharpshooter with a reputation for never missing his mark. Their mission was simple but dangerous: to infiltrate Nigan territory and disrupt their operations from within. They would target key installations, sabotage supply lines, and gather intelligence on the enemy's plans. It was a mission that required precision, stealth, and nerves of steel. The team set off in a modified stealth ship, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. They slipped through the Nigan defenses like shadows, their presence undetected as they made their way deep into enemy territory. Their first target was a Nigan fuel depot, a massive facility that supplied the Empire's warships with the energy they needed to operate. The depot was heavily guarded, with patrols of Nigan soldiers patrolling the perimeter and automated turrets scanning the skies for intruders. Adams and his team moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, their actions synchronized as they approached the depot. Cypher hacked into the security systems, disabling the turrets and cameras that guarded the entrance. Stark and Hawkeye took out the guards with silent precision, their weapons equipped with suppressors to avoid detection. Once inside, they planted explosives at key points around the facility, setting the timers to detonate simultaneously. As they made their escape, the depot erupted in a series of massive explosions, sending shock waves through the surrounding area. The Nigan forces scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The depot was in ruins, and the Empire's war machine had been dealt a significant blow. But the mission was far from over. Over the next few weeks, the team launched a series of lightning raids on Nigan installations, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could react. They sabotaged communication relays, destroyed supply convoys, and gathered valuable intelligence on the Nigan's plans. Their actions sowed chaos and confusion within the Nigan ranks, forcing them to divert resources and manpower to defend against the relentless attacks. It was a war of attrition, one that slowly but surely began to tilt the balance in humanity's favor. But as the team returned to New Terra after their latest mission, they received troubling news. The Nigan Empire had developed a new weapon, one capable of wiping out entire star systems with a single strike. It was a doomsday device, a last-ditch effort by King Talon to turn the tide of the war in his favor. Admiral Landry's face was pale as she relayed the information to Adams. "If they deploy this weapon, it could mean the end of everything we've fought for. We need to stop them." Adams nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We will. We have to." As they prepared for what could be their final mission, the weight of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. The fate of humanity and countless other species depended on their success. The road to victory was long and fraught with danger, but they would not falter. They would fight to the last breath, and they would not stop until the Nigan Empire was brought to its knees. The Doomsday Device. The command center was a hive of activity as the final preparations for the mission were made. The atmosphere was tense, with every person in the room acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. The Nigan Empire's Doomsday Device was a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of wiping out entire star systems in an instant. If it was deployed, the consequences would be catastrophic. Captain Adams stood at the center of the room, his gaze focused on the holographic display that showed the location of the Nigan's secret weapon. The device was housed within a heavily fortified facility deep within the Nigan homeworld, surrounded by layers of defenses that would make any direct assault nearly impossible. "We're going to have to infiltrate the facility and disable the weapon from the inside," Adams said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "It's going to be dangerous, but it's the only way." The future of humanity. The aftermath of the mission was a time of reflection and rebuilding. The human fleet had dealt a significant blow to the Nigan Empire, and for the first time in the war, there was a sense of hope among the survivors. The galaxy had been saved from the brink of destruction, but the scars of the conflict ran deep. Captain Adams stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, his gaze focused on the stars that stretched out before them. The war had taken its toll on him, both physically and mentally, but he knew that the fight was far from over. The Nigan Empire was still out there, and they would not rest until humanity was brought to its knees. But Adams was determined. He had seen the strength and resilience of the human spirit, and he knew that they would continue to fight no matter the odds. The future of humanity was uncertain, but as long as there were people willing to stand up and defend it, there was hope. Admiral Landry joined him on the bridge, her expression filled with a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "We've come a long way," she said, her voice steady, "but there's still a lot of work to be done." Adams nodded, his gaze never leaving the stars. "We'll keep fighting," he said, his voice filled with determination. "For our people, for our future. We'll never give up." Landry placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with pride. "You've done well, Captain. The galaxy owes you a debt of gratitude." Adams shook his head, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. "It wasn't just me," he said, his voice soft. "It was all of us. Every single person who fought, who sacrificed. We did this together." As the Prometheus continued its journey through the stars, Adams knew that the road ahead would be difficult. The Nigan Empire was still a threat, and the fight for survival would continue. But he also knew that they had the strength, the courage, and the will to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future of humanity was in their hands, and they would protect it with everything they had. For as long as there were people willing to stand up and fight, there was hope. And as long as there was hope, there was a future worth fighting for.